Elephants are undeniably the most beautiful animals on Earth. They are adored by many people for their fascinating looks, intelligence, and gentle nature. There are many who associate elephants with luck and say that they have a memory which is set in stone. There is scientific evidence to support the fact that elephants never seem to forget. Elephants will remember the kindness, help, and harm they experienced. They'll also remember which paths they traveled to get somewhere and back to their original starting point. Likewise, they'll notice all the small differences between each path as well. There are even stories of elephants traveling several days to see the body of a loved one after somehow communicating that they had passed away. They are truly remarkable creatures. Unfortunately, though, they have been under much scrutiny. They have often found themselves the subject of hunters. About 100 years ago, elephants were often seen tuskless because of how many hunters decided their tusks only existed as a prize. Ivory was considered as precious as gold, and it is only in recent years that the ivory trade has been called off. Now, those who wear ivory are frowned upon, and elephants, which are about to become endangered, are saved in sanctuaries or reservations in order to repopulate the earth with these beautiful, gentle creatures. Most times, elephants are very independent, but occasionally they need some help from a human. This is the story of one elephant who received a helping hand from kind humans. The Manapa Community Conservancy is a source of pride in Kenya. It is home to many elephants, and it is known around the world for how wonderful it is to their species. Elephants who go to live there live long and happy lives and often outlive their wild counterparts. They have plenty of room to roam around, and they're safe from hunters. The keepers make sure they get medical attention if they are sick, and the conservancy makes sure that the elephants have everything they need. This story happened one day in the middle of May when the weather in Kenya had been particularly rainy. Rain was good for the crops and for the flowers, and no one thought it would cause too much of a problem. Although there was sometimes a problem with mudslides or flooding in Kenya, it hadn't rained so much that anyone thought to be concerned. However, on the land one morning, herders spotted a problem while watering their livestock. One section of the trail seems to have turned out to be muddier than expected, and one elephant took a tumble. The poor thing got stuck in a mud hole and couldn't get out. The herds alerted the community members as to the elephant's whereabouts, and help was soon on the way. A man named Jackson was the manager of the conservancy at the time, and he knew that there was not something he was going to be able to do alone. He assembled a team knowing that this may be a mission that ends in sorrow. Mud traps were notorious for being fatal if one was stuck in them long enough, and the herders had not described the elephant. It could be a baby, or it could be a full-grown one. He wasn't sure what was worst as they assembled ropes and brute force. If it was a baby, there was a chance the poor thing may already be on its way to the end of its life. If it was full-grown, it might be hardier, but the chances of pulling a full-size elephant out of a mud trap were almost impossible. Still, they knew that they could not just leave the creature there. It was their job to protect the elephants, and they had to provide them with as much of a chance at life as possible. When Jackson felt like they had enough men rope and forced to pull a baby elephant out, they headed down to the mud trap. Unfortunately, they found that it wasn't a baby at all, but a 15-year-old bull. The mud trap had it well and truly stuck, and every time it struggled, it slipped a little bit more. Elephants were known for being smart creatures, and it seemed to figure out that struggling was the worst thing it could do. When it saw Jackson, it looked up at him with large eyes. The elephants seemed to know that Jackson was there to help. Jackson did not want to let the elephant down, even if it meant staying there for several hours. Jackson knew that he had to act with confidence, especially as the situation got worse. If he didn't, his men would likely give up, and then the elephant would never be free. It wasn't that they didn't love the creatures as much as he did. It was simply that this was almost a lost cause before they started. Jackson told them to approach the elephant carefully. Although the creature knew that Jackson was there to help, it did not know some of the other men. And Jackson knew there was a chance the elephant might be frightened or become aggressive towards them and struggle farther into the mud trap. Jackson tried to shake the image of the elephant lost to the mud trap out of his mind as the men slowly placed the ropes around the elephant. For that part, it stood completely still, clearly aware that they were trying to help it become free. Elephants are known for being incredibly heavy creatures on their own. They could weigh thousands of pounds, and with the addition of the mud on top of this poor creature, it was unlikely that this rescue would be successful. Jackson knew that his sanctuary would suffer quite a reputation if the elephant died. He was grateful that the shepherd had spotted the poor elephant, but he could only imagine the bad press if the elephant passed away in such a tragic condition. It wasn't so much about his ego as knowing that a blow like that could cut funding and donations from the business. Every dollar that they raised or were gifted went into caring for the creatures. He also thought about all the elephants that they helped when they were abandoned or injured in the wild. This elephant's death could technically cause the death of thousands if they did not help. He told his men to double down, and they started trying new ways of binding the rope. The elephant grew calmer, but Jackson was worried that it was because he was giving up hope. Finally, he knew that they were running out of time. The elephant was sinking so far that if they did not become successful on this try, they would not be successful at all. With one last prayer and one last time of the rope, they managed to begin to free the elephant. "Keep pulling," Jackson cried, and it seemed like the elephant was helped as well. Finally, as if a miracle, the elephant came free. The men immediately backed away, unsure what the elephant was going to do. Instead of bucking in surprise or running, it simply laid there and looked at its rescuers with a look of gratitude. Eventually, the elephant got up. It was still dropping its mud, but it seemed to regain its strangeness and recover from the shock of the mud trap. It took one last look at its rescuers and then walked away towards the sunset. Jackson breathed a sigh of relief as he saw the strength of the elephant's steps. Its legs were strong, and it did not seem injured. Jackson knew that he had to tell the herder that had reported the issue what had happened. He made a priority to thank him and tell him that he saved the elephant's life. The herder said that he was glad that he was in the right place at the right time. Jackson did not realize that one of his fellow rescuers had taken photos of the experience, and he asked his permission to share them. He didn't see any harm, so he gave them permission. He thought perhaps they would just share them with their friends and families, and at the most it would attract a little bit of local attention. Those in the area already knew about their mission to help the elephants, so it did not seem like much good or bad would come of it. What he did not realize was that those photos would do more than just share their extraordinary day. They would draw attention to the business and how much they needed help from people all over the world. The photos drew people in and got many likes and shares. Jackson noticed that their online donations started to skyrocket. People who had never heard of the conservancy or who had never set foot in Kenya donated and praised the men for their brave efforts. The men were a bit mystified by the praise. For them, it wasn't an act of bravery or even anything out of the ordinary. They would have done it with or without praise. The donations, however, they accepted in order to continue to have supplies to help other elephants. Although mud traps could not be completely prevented, they did use some of the money fundraised in order to help lay new ground in places where they seemed to recur. However, upon analysis, they also noticed that an elephant would never fall into the same mud trap twice. Their amazing memories remembered the trauma of the experience, no matter how many years it was in the past. The mud traps are not quite gone, but they are dwindling every time it rains. Today, the Conservancy continues to care for many elephants and other beautiful creatures who need help. They will respond to any call for help from a concerned member of the public and either help the animal themselves or reach out to their network. They will also share supplies and funds with their sister conservancies because they believe that they are all on the same mission. Maintaining a safe space for animals to grow and thrive is their goal, and thanks to these pictures, they have been pushed into the spotlight. There's more awareness than ever before, and we now have the chance to help many other animals too. Do you have an important animal story that you can never forget? Would you like to share it with us? Your story might also be interesting and will inspire other people. Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.